Welcome to the Retro 21 Studios podcast. I'm your host, Square. Today, I'm joined with Adir Yehuda. He's the CEO and founder of AutonomyAI. He's a SaaS and go-to-market leader who previously served as a founding executive at Walnut.io. Today, he leads AutonomyAI and the team behind Phase Studio, a system that collapses the gap between product intent and real production delivery, helping teams move faster by removing handoffs, reducing iteration cycles, and letting more of the organization contribute directly to shipping outcomes while engineering stays in control. Welcome, Adir.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm really excited that you've joined the podcast today. You've been a founding executive and now CEO of AutonomyAI. What frustration or pattern kept showing up that made you say the gap between intent and delivery has to be solved differently?
Yeah. So first of all, let's talk about the bigger problem, right? It's competition. It's very competitive. And I think every executive in every organization, whether it's VC level all the way up to the CEO, they're worried that competition is going to be ahead of them. They're worried that they are going to wake up the next morning and their biggest competitor is going to release a feature they're begging from their R&D and product team to deliver 2 months ago. And it has zero effect saying, I told you. It helps no one. I think one of the things that when we start talking about AutonomyAI, the entire vision is, okay, how can we actually harness the power of AI to actually reduce this gap? How can we actually harness the power of AI to make sure that the executives' lives that are running the company, that are moving the company forward, they would be able to go to sleep at night with the regular worries and know that like the intent, the ideas they have will be executed as fast as possible, not just to keep pace with the market, but actually to go and be front runners in the market itself. So that's exactly the point we wanted to tackle.
So when you say collapsing the gap between product intent and real production delivery, what exactly breaks down in traditional workflows?
So I think there are a few things, right? First of all, the workflow itself, I like to give the metaphor of, you remember those cameras when we used to be kids, like Kodak cameras, right? You take a snapshot, you have maybe 32 pictures that you can take, then you go to the mall, you wait for an hour if you're lucky, and then you see those pictures and you analyze them and you tell your buddy, hey, now we didn't do a good picture, let's buy another roll, let's take a few more photos. And this is the process today. Even today with AI that is being deployed in, 99.9% of the companies, it's the same process. You go, you talk with clients, you go back to design, you iterate, you go to engineering, you see, no, I need to go back to the mall because I need to develop another picture. It takes days, weeks, months to get to this place. And That's a huge gap. You need to go through so many hands and go through so many people. It doesn't matter how communicative people are, how invested they are. Communication breaks things in the middle. So I think that's one thing. I think also when you're a product leader or when you're a UX designer in an organization, you have a soul to what you want to build. In every great journey, your soul is getting a little bit rusty and you forgot the core of what you want to do, for lack of better words. And I think that's another huge gap. So you've missed this flow with all the hand movements and conversations and back and forth. That's a huge gap that I'm seeing today.
Got it. So you mentioned the handoffs, and I would imagine you have the telephone effect, right? So there's loss in context with those multiple hands, misalignment. Engineering bandwidth comes up quite often within that context. How would you rank or compare?
First of all, I think there are two things here. I think engineering bandwidth is somewhat a bottleneck, but the bigger bottleneck is the velocity between PM to designer to engineering, go back and forth. The velocity bottleneck is the key thing. So that's exactly where we're trying to help companies from that aspect and from that focus. So that's exactly the point.
So in terms of velocity, you're talking in terms of iteration drag. How about opportunity costs, decision latency? There's so many downstream impacts.
I think the downstream impacts are not just latency, right? So let's think about a few aspects. Yes, there is time to market. That's one, but that's the obvious one. Let's talk about the cost of making mistakes in your hypothesis. When you look at a planning, you get the data points, you understand what you want to do. And then once you deliver something, you realize you made a mistake, or you realize it's not exactly hitting the mark as you wanted. Suddenly you're like, oh, I need to go back and fix. And it takes you more time to fix it. So it's becoming very much expensive to make a mistake from that perspective. I think that's a thing that AI wanted to resolve, but still not there. So it helps when you wanted to maybe fix a quick bug. It helps when you have engineering that can fix things. But think about it. You need to have the brain of what you want your product to do. That's not a place that AI is still there.
Excellent. How much of this is AI and how much is process architecture?
So I think at the end of the day, AI needs to be tamed. If you actually know what you want to do and you actually understand the system architecture, you actually understand the workflow you want to execute on, that's where AI will execute very good, right? Mm-hmm. But I think if you don't have the understanding of the flow itself, so that's where you start hearing AI doesn't really work for us. AI doesn't really help. It's not really helpful. And I think the AI is not a problem. I think the understanding of the workflow you want to actually execute, the system architecture that you want to execute, that's the key thing that you need to deliver on.
So let's say, for instance, I'm a CTO or VP of product listening right now. How should I conceptualize Phase Studio? Is it an AI co-developer, a production layer, or a collaboration operating system?
Yeah, so I think two things. First of all, let's go back to the metaphor. I think what Phase Studio is doing for organizations, it's moving them essentially from the film camera to the digital era of cameras, the ability to actually produce things in a faster way. And for us, it's essentially it has the output of coding, but you need to think about a few layers there. So let's talk about the operator. All of a sudden, the operators of Phase Studio could be individuals that doesn't necessarily know how to code or has even any technical ability from that matter, right? So it helps them put an input that it could be an input that could be missing or input that doesn't understand the full layer and the context of the code itself, and then generate a full code that could go all the way to production. It's a layer on top of your code that can enable or translate your needs into the code itself without the need of any technical individual. And what effectively does, it helps this VP of product, for that matter, that you mentioned, to be off the chains of the rules that are today in the workflow and actually start executing on things and deliver on them faster.
That's a compelling message for product folks. But on the engineering side, it's a matter of control, a matter of quality assurance. You mentioned that engineers stay in control. That's a big concern right now.
Yeah, so I think it's a key thing. And that was company's been around for 2 years. In the first year and a half, that's exactly what we worked on, right? We built a technology called ACE, an agentic context engine that can be deployed on your existing code base. Think about it. The best example that I could give is if you have a super senior engineer that comes into the organization and learn the entire coding standards in the organization within minutes, right? And that's the first part. We build essentially the recipe book of how you should behave this code and how our agent should write the code inside your organization. So that's the first part. The second part we're doing is we are building a sandbox. So we're not deploying directly into the code itself. We're enabling the PMs, UX designers, UI designers to actually do all the iterations in a sandbox with a safe environment. Only once it's ready, we'll push it into a pull request where engineers would be on the loop. So from their perspective, they're getting an extension. They're getting another person on the team that can actually deliver, that can actually execute, but they know they can build a trust with this engine that they're utilizing Phase Studio for them.
Earlier, you mentioned improvements or impacts on velocity. Can you walk us through what changes when iteration cycles shrink? Is it fewer meetings, faster prototypes, more experiments shipped out?
So first of all, let's start from the basic. It's as simple as it sounds. It's faster intent to execution. You have an intent, you want to do something, instead of going through all those hoops, it's a direct line to execution. That's as simple as it sounds, but let's drill down for a second on this, right? So I want to give you an example. Our PM, our product manager, she had an idea or a need that we had in the product. And she decided she wants to build something with Phase Studio, right? We wanted to enable multiple connections of repos or projects within Phase Studio. And she built the first one. And then she said, man, it doesn't look that good. I'm not sure if I want this version. And this, by the way, I need to give the time step because this happened at 10 a.m. Eastern. And by 10:15, she said, okay, I have a new version now. I think I can expand this. So by 10:30, she had the third. By 10:45, she had the fourth. But then guess what she did? She came to us and she said, what do you guys like? And guess what she did next? She went to clients and showed them this live on the call. What version do you want? First of all, she built multiple versions that clients could verify, the market can verify. But guess what she also made as an impact? She also reduces the chance of making mistakes. And she made the mistakes cheaper and not more expensive from her perspective. And once she decided that's the version I want, she clicked push to production, and we delivered this very quickly. She didn't neg engineering. She didn't neg UX designers. She sat with herself for an hour and actually focused on what matters after, the market validation, which is what matters after. That's a huge contributor to how velocity could be achieved, but also how can you actually execute on the right things? And the right things are the things that the market actually cares about.
That's right. So how does this change their ways of working? It sounds significant. It's a big paradigm shift.
Yeah. So I think reality is that you have today PMs that are trying to break the patterns, right? But what do? They usually go and maybe use Figma and build prototypes. Maybe they even go to Lovable or Bolt or all those kind of tools and products. And they want to start breaking the workflows that they have today. And I think the missing link there is the ability to actually do this on your code base. And the workflow that is changing right now and what we're seeing actively day in and day out with the PMs and the companies. Today, by the way, 100 companies are already using Face Studio, is we're seeing them actually doing this entire execution on their code base. It gives them the ability and the power to actually control their product for real and control their destiny of where the product is going to end up. But I think it's more than that. It gives them the freedom to actually experiment on things that before they wouldn't want to experiment on, right? Because, now this is outside of my scope. I need to go to the UX designer. Maybe I need to talk with my manager about this. And then I need to go to talk with this guy from R&D to see if we can put it in the next sprint. This is a workflow that is belong to 2025 from my perspective. There is no reason to do this. The only reason that this is not being done today and companies haven't fully adopted this is because you don't have the right tools and the right platforms to execute on those kind of things today. So that's the new workflow that we're trying to push towards. And that's the new workflow that we're seeing across the board today with our clients.
Awesome. You mentioned a fairly sizable client base. And so from that, you were able to take a step back and take a look at the entire ecosystem. So from your perspective, what separates organizations that are successfully adopting AI-driven production from those that struggle? Because certainly when you're coming into client organizations, I imagine there's a problem state, there's some struggle. So how do you differentiate between the two, or what are your observations?
I think the companies that adopted Face Studio and companies that adopted AI in general are the companies that realize it's not going to be perfect. The result is it's not going to be 100% in the beginning. The naysayers that we see, not just with Autonomy and Face Studio, our product across the board, it's not perfect. Of course, it's not perfect. If you expect to get 100% result, and if it's not 100%, so you can't do anything with it, it just doesn't make any sense. It's like getting off the couch and run a half marathon or like the New York City Marathon for that matter. So the companies that we're looking at and talking with us are companies that they realize they want to achieve incremental value. They want to be committed to the process. And once they achieve the first incremental value, they start building up. So companies like with Autonomy and the better use cases, companies that started with smaller use cases, save 20% of the time. They're like, okay, we understand what's going on. We understand the guardrails and start building workflows that got them from 20% to 80% time saved on the time. And then guess what? 80% time saved is with the same workforce that you have today. You can achieve way more. So yes, it's not 100%. And if anyone listen to this podcast and saying, hey, I've read on LinkedIn that they're doing everything 100%, it's never the case. But the key part is incremental and gradual improvement. That's how you actually achieve real results with AI. And that's what we see with Face Studio.
That's fantastic. On the human side with AI, everyone's talking about AI taking over a particular job. We're seeing the advance in agents and code assistants. How do you see AI augmenting engineers or eventually restructuring what an engineering team actually looks like?
Yes. So I think the key part, and that's what I see clearly, is moving from being the builder or writing the actual code to being an orchestrator. The ability to actually orchestrate a group of products, a group of agents that can actually that can actually work together and understand what do you ask from each one of them. I think that's the evolution of this profession, right? Whether it's engineers, whether it's PMs, even UX designers. I think managers need to understand that they want to have people on their team that can actually understand how to operate AI platforms and AI tools. And it's not just, okay, they can click a few buttons there. Everyone can do it. Or they can write in English or in any other language for that matter, what they want. It's also understanding the first output, how it looks like, assess it very quickly, understand and fine tune the results. So that's the evolution of the profession. But reality is you'll need less people on those kind of things. That's on one end. That's the sheer reality. But it will also open individuals that are not part of this or part of different companies the ability to actually build their own companies and their own products for them. First of all, speed. You need to move fast. I've been in this market for, 15 years. I've never seen something moving that fast. That's the first thing. Second thing is the ability, people are very much sarcastic, cynical about it, right? We've seen everything. Everyone told us this thing is going to do X, Y, and Z. Why is your product different? So I think a key part above anything in the go-to-market today is strong social proof. You want to come in with blazing guns and saying, this is the logo I have. This is the logo I have. This is a VP product that I talked with and is willing to talk with you about what we're doing. Social proof, social proof. The more you will have it, the better you'll be able to move and go and get more clients and move at the top of the funnel as well. Right? And I think it's a key thing that changed, right? If you look at the evolution, pre-COVID, it was like, okay, the SaaS market was very interesting. People wanted to buy products that helped them. Then COVID started and people had basically money to buy everything. So people just bought stuff, just bought. And we could talk about the entire strategy and go to market during the COVID era, but it doesn't matter really. It's people just had money. And then post COVID, we started seeing SaaS slowing down. But now with AI products are jumping significantly and people are looking at multiple products that are doing the same thing time and time again. They want to talk with people that actually bought your product, show an impact because they don't want to waste time in embedding another product that is not helping them.
Now, what do you attribute that to? The obvious one is folks are seeing results, right? They're seeing what their competitors are doing. So, hey, I need to get on that wagon. You think about that technology camel we used to talk about years ago, right? The early adopters, then the laggards. Within that context, what objections do you hear, if any, from enterprises?
I have an example. I talked with an executive SVP in a company, financial institution. I'm not going to mention their names, but I do want to quote him on what he said. He said, for the first time in my career, I don't have a budget problem. I have an overload problem. I want to choose the right products. I can buy anything under the sun, but I don't want to buy because I want to choose the right products because there is a lot of noise. So that's the first objection. It's why are you better than the other? Why are you more impactful than the other? That's the first objection. I think that this overload creates a place of, okay, when I look at my organization, when I look at the challenges that I have, how does the mapping looks like? Again, metaphorically speaking, I can drive from a place A to a place B with the car, right? But then if I need to, I know I'm going to do a lot of renovations, maybe I need a pickup truck. If I know I'm going to have a big family, maybe I need a Hyundai Odyssey for that matter. So that's the same thing, I think, with AI. People still don't understand is I need AI. I have different problems. What AI do I need? And I think the noise that they're facing right now creates a huge challenge on picking up the right things, right? So this is a huge objection. Where does it fit? Is it better? Is it actually going to be impactful for me? I think quite a few things. It's almost you remember the Men in Black movies with the red stick that everyone forget everything when Will Smith is doing that. So it's the same thing. I'll give you one thing that I've came to realize, and that's something that's very interesting, and maybe it's optimistic note about the future of hiring. I think I realized that I don't want to have necessarily executives in my organization. I want to hire young, hungry individuals that can actually adapt to things, right? And we can mold them and shape them to the way we want, but they're also shapeable. They want to learn, right? So I think that's a key thing. I think the second thing that I've learned from my perspective and from being a founder is you have to own the entire cycle. So I led a go-to-market team. I cared about new business deeply, right? But I didn't necessarily care about if it's being collected at the end or not. I need to own this entire cycle. I care about every single feedback that not just my clients have, but a random person who used my product and send us a feedback on Slack or on whatever system we use, right? I jump on this. This is my enterprise company. This is $1 million deal. Even if it's a guy that like lives somewhere and is a one-man show, I don't care. That's my enterprise deal, and I need to care about this feedback. And that's like a sentiment that it's a headspace you need to be at. There is no small feedback or big feedback. Every feedback is the make it or break it of your company.
So in the next few years, and it's funny, I mentioned in a few years, every day there's something new, some new innovation that you have to consider. But in the not too distant future, whatever that means to you, because it's subjective, what does a high-performing product organization look like?
A fully autonomous organization, meaning I want to ingest all the data in an autonomous way. I want to create all the PRDs, the product release descriptions in an autonomous way. And then I want to push it into production in an autonomous way. I think building strategy is going to be a key skill that AI would have as a co-pilot, but not as a main dish. But executing on those strategies is going to be the key part of what Face Studio is going to enable, right? So a team that will say, this is the North Star, now go fetch. Or this is where I want to be in the end of the quarter, now go fetch from the data that I have and start building this flow. So that's exactly how I imagine organizations. And I think like a few years is like a long time. I think it's by the end of 2026, I think that's what you're going to see in the market. It might be early, it might be buggy, but that's where you're going to see things shifting. And I can tell you right now, that's where Face Studio is heading towards by the end of 2026.
You just described my next question, and that's are we moving towards a world where non-engineers routinely ship production-ready features? And I think that's what you just described, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and I think engineers will have a place to be on the loop. Less engineers, less PMs, less UX, less than everything. That's what we're moving towards. And like, honestly, we forgot the purpose of the products that are out there, right? If you're building a business, like you're building a business to sell, you're building a business to make profit, right? You're maybe building a business to make people happy from that perspective. But your clients, your users, they don't care about how the sausage is being made. They want to get the sausage, right? And I think like we forgot about this. And we're so consumed on like how the sausage is being made instead of utilizing the tools and the platforms we have today to just deliver. And that's a key thing.
Excellent. So we're getting close to time. Just a couple of rapid fire questions, if you don't mind. What's some of the biggest misconceptions about AI in production?
I think the first part, that it's going to be perfect. It's not. The expectation of it going to be perfect, it's definitely not. I think the second thing on the flip side, that it's going to be faulty. It's not. It's the understanding of how you orchestrate those kind of things. And that's a key part of what people need to understand. I also think that AI is not a fairy dust, right? It's not, if you're going to sprinkle your business some AI, you're going to be like Mark Cuban now, because that's it. You realize everything. Not going to be the case. Like you need to understand how to use tools like that and where to use them. From my perspective, I use anywhere between ChatGPT and Perplexity. I think Perplexity is the key thing. Like it's my go-to. I can't live without it. I ask every question. We talk every day, 5 times a day, because like sometimes I want to break, I wash the dishes and I'm like, hey, Perplexity, I have an idea. Let's talk about it for a second. And it's really huge shout out to the founders there, right? Like they did a great job. I love this product.
I'm with you. I use ChatGPT quite a bit, but I'm all over Perplexity. It's a good tool. And I love the sourcing. Any advice to early stage founders building in AI today?
Yeah, I think don't challenge the current companies that are being successful in the AI era. Go and find those companies that are old school. Challenge them. It's going to be easier for you to find the lower hanging fruits to provide value. It's going to be easier for you to raise funds because that's what VCs are looking for. And I think you like the ability to compete with the behemoth that are raising now $500 million or whatever it is. It's not a place you want to be. Go and challenge old school companies, old industries with AI today. Things are going to be moving faster. They're going to be smoother. That's the best advice I think I could give for an early stage founder in the AI space, or people that want to look at the AI space and build a company.
Awesome. I appreciate you taking the time for this podcast and your insightful answers. How do folks get in touch with Autonomy AI?
So first of all, they can go to our website, AutonomyAI.io, or connect with me on LinkedIn, Adir Ben Yehuda. Feel free to connect. I'll accept everyone's connections and happy to talk. From talking about Autonomy AI to give advices on how you want to build your company.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I look forward to bringing you back on the podcast. I'd love to hear about the ongoing success of Autonomy AI.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.